Welcome back to the Unbound Woman podcast. I'm really excited to be back. We are doing a part 2 about the nervous system, and this episode is going to just bring you that little piece of knowledge as to what the nervous system actually is, how it becomes programmed, and why it's so important. Like, what is the impact of having a dysregulated nervous system? And you're probably already living this, right? If you find yourself constantly bloated, no matter how good your nutrition is, you're constantly finding yourself tired, snappy, hormonal, moody. Maybe you've got pain in places that no amount of acupuncture and physiotherapy is helping. And you constantly feel on the precipice of either losing your shit or breaking down and crying. So this episode is going to be for you because for me, I truly believe that knowledge is power. And while, yes, we can also have a beautiful belief in energetics and our vibe and how we make choices in how we feel and how we choose to show up, it's also very good to know what we're working with. And I really hope this gives you a little bit of an insight into this, because I've been kind of teaching on the nervous system for years, particularly around the sexuality stuff, because it's all about safety. At the end of the day, the nervous system is about understanding that it's safe in the body. And I personally like seeing the nervous system like our inner child. You know, we talk about all this inner child work, and I really think that actually what we're always referring to is the nervous system. Right? We need to nourish it like a child. We need to keep it safe like a child. We need to give it space like a child, right? So effectively, like, what is the nervous system? You've probably heard the words all over fucking Instagram and you're like, what is it though? Like, what is it? Well, the nervous system is like our command center. It is running from our brain through our spinal cord all the way down into our pelvis, our cervix for women as well. Like, it's a deep connection with our cervix, hence why our sexuality is impacted by it all. And it's built up of like nerves that send electrical signals and messages back and forth all around the body. That's why we're feeling pain. It's telling us what's going on. And I could go into how the nervous system's broken up, but I'm not going to, because unless you actually need this for any form of reason, you can go and look it up yourself in regards to that. But also, like, I'm learning about it for my course, but it's not for you to have to know, right? It's more about what the basics are for you in general. And effectively, it regulates processes like thoughts, memories, our reactions. It actually runs a lot of the time in the background. So, like, you know, when we're sweating, blinking, breathing, like, this is all about, like, a lot of our nervous system's actually unconscious work, right? So it's about like feelings, how we sense things, all of these beautiful stuff. Our digestion, huge one, particularly for my bloated ladies out there, or my constipated ladies out there, or the opposite of constipation ladies out there. You know, these all have a massive impact. So we take in information in our environment, right? We hear, we see, we taste, we smell. And the nervous system works off of those senses, right? This is why our senses and being connected to our senses is so deeply important. So, like, have you ever walked in anywhere or caught the smell of something and it's brought you back into a memory instantly? Well, that's because your nervous system remembers. It's kind of like the computer running in the background, or like even AI at the moment, right? It's like AI running in the background of everything, picking up all this information and learning how to react to something. So my ChatGPT is going to answer the same question, possibly with the same answers, but in a very different way based on how we've interacted with it throughout our time using it, right? It's the same thing with us as humans. And our nervous system is first developed when we're in connection with our mother in the womb. So you have to remember, when they say to women, don't get stressed, try and keep your stress to a minimum, keep your anxiety down. What we're starting to learn now is that just like our microbiome in our gut, we are also connected to our mother's nervous system. It's the first nervous system we have interaction with. when we're being developed in the womb. Depending on what she carries, how high her cortisol levels are on a homeostasis basis, by the way, as well, like what her mainline, her balance is, all the different things that go on during pregnancy, how she deals with anger, her emotions, is she feeling them, is she suppressing them? All of these different things start to be fed through into our nervous system when it's being developed in the womb, right? Now, before you all go and start blaming your mothers on your nervous system, that would have created your baseline. And your baseline would have actually known no different, right? So if you're born with high cortisol levels, that is technically your baseline. It can always change because we are not limited beings. We are unlimited. We can change anything. We can change our DNA. We can activate and deactivate shit in our systems. But this is our baseline, right? So you're already born with a higher baseline than most people, or maybe lower. Maybe even much lower one. Maybe she was in freeze for a lot of it, or maybe she just had a really great pregnancy and everything was in flow and she's dealt with her shit. She's owned all of her trauma. She's dealt with it. Who knows? You then are born, and you're born into whatever situation that you were born into. Your life becomes your life, right? Maybe you are in a very high stress, dysfunctional environment. For whatever reason. It doesn't have to necessarily be high physical or sexual trauma, but it can still be traumatic. Or maybe it is that. Maybe you are told that your emotions aren't safe. Maybe you don't understand how to emotionally regulate yourself. Maybe you're witnessing parents or family members or adults that you're around who also can't do that. You become a version of dysregulation, and you learn how to act accordingly based on how your nervous system has reacted. The nervous system and these fight, flight, fawn, freeze responses are a form of protection mechanism. So, it was like thousands, millions of years ago when we would feel fight or flight. We would know to run if a dinosaur came. We would know to play dead to certain animals. Like whatever our response would show up as, we knew how to respond because that was the stress in the moment. However, as we know with those animals, we'd either die or they would move along. We would then re-regulate ourselves. When you live in a high stress environment and you're constantly feeling the fear, or like a threat is coming, or you're constantly feeling like you're having to mask yourself or please to appease people, we learn this and our nervous system becomes high alert. So whether it's a parent that maybe couldn't regulate themselves, so you knew you had to regulate yourself, or you had to be on edge to kind of keep them happy because if you didn't, this is what was going to happen. Or you were in a volatile situation for whatever reason as a child, you learn to suppress and to act certain ways based on how your body is feeling in that moment. So this becomes then your new balance, and this is your new homeostasis. And then obviously you become teenager and all those added stresses. Your parents want you to do really well, so you push yourself into college, you stress yourself out. Hormonal changes start happening, which is never easy. You're then trying to fit in. You don't know who you are. Add in all of those things. You learn different things throughout societies of what is and isn't acceptable, of who you can and cannot be. So your nervous system's taking these things on all of the time. All of the time it's developing as a person to react unconsciously to what it's feeling energetically or physically or emotionally in that moment. You then become an adult, and you're now working off a nervous system that is X amount of years old, that has learned unconsciously how to act and react to certain ways. So a fine example of this is let's say a war veteran. Right, so a war veteran, he has been trained to do a certain thing. He goes to war and everything around him becomes a threat. He has to be on constantly. Even when they're sleeping, they need to be alert, right? They need to be alert every time they go out. They can't walk down the street. Then they return home, right? And there's no expelling of that threat feeling, that fight or flight response that they have. right? So he now walks around on this nervous system that's constantly waiting for a threat. So you drop a pan in front of him and he instantly drops to the floor. Or it's the same thing with, like, if a car backfires around them, that's like the common thing that we talk about. Again, the same reaction he's having, because his body has been built on a nervous system over X amount of years on how to react, and it hasn't learned to switch itself off. So as adults, this is what happens, right? We then take on work. We then take on having a social life. We're then trying to, bring in the money. We're trying to save for a house. Then our trauma from past things start to come up, because that's what's running the show, right? We're reacting from our past. Even though the situations might be very different, we're still reacting from that feeling and sensation that we're getting, right? And I've had this, I still have it in some aspects of my life. Like, I recently realized that a wound of mine that's coming up in this retrograde is around how I feel about my own intelligence, and how it comes across to others is that when I explain something, because I felt very misunderstood as a child, and I was certain things came up in my life where I was told, like, I wasn't intelligent, I was never going to achieve anything. So my intelligence has always been something that I'm quite fragile about, actually. And when I try and explain myself or have a deep conversation with somebody, and they go, I don't really get what you mean, or like when they say that, they come across quite like, oh, you're fucking stupid, or that's what I hear, and it's not what they're saying. They just didn't understand where I was coming from. I then get like, it's not aggressive, but because I'm passionate, I get very like, I just reinforce the point, but in a like, don't fuck with me kind of way. And it's because I get angry because I feel misunderstood. And that is something that's recently been brought to my attention. And I now understand the root behind it. So now I can see it. But it's because I can tell you, even now, just talking about it, even saying the words like, I don't understand what you're saying, or you're not making any sense. Like, I can feel the feeling coming up in my body. It sits right behind my chest, and it goes from my stomach up to my chest. And I can feel that. And that's my nervous system working. Because it's like, oh my God, you're being misunderstood again. Just reinforce your point because you're right. Or people are thinking you're stupid, so reinstate it, like, and that's what it feels like, right? So that's how you know your nervous system is activated. We live in a world nowadays where stress and high cortisol levels that we're talking about all of the time. This is the new fad word, along with nervous system. And they're both the same kind of thing, because it's the nervous system's activating the cortisol, but we're running off really high levels consistently. And then we're drinking coffee, we're eating crappy foods, we're drinking alcohol. Some people are taking drugs, which is all cool, but like having an impact. We're having a massive impact on our own lives because we're running on a nervous system that is actually about to burn out. So what happens as it starts to burn out? And even before it does, there is signals that your body is giving you before you even get sick. So like the fatigue you're feeling, the lack of energy, the massive irritability. Maybe you have painful periods. Maybe you have, swollen, if you're swollen every morning. Maybe you're not digesting food. Maybe you're overly digesting food. Maybe you're constantly feeling anxious and having panic attacks. There's lots of ways in which this nervous system reaction shows up in the body. And these are quite, I don't want to say mild, because they're not mild. They're not mild symptoms whatsoever. But compared to where ignoring it will bring you, like, we're seeing adrenal issues, right? So it's burning out your adrenals, hence why you're exhausted. The cortisol is also impacting your hormones because it's being set off by your nervous system. Your digestive system is being impacted. Your gut is being impacted. Your fucking immune system's being impacted. If you're consistently running off this high activated nervous system constantly, and you can't bring yourself back to a homeostasis, What's happening is the body is building this and it doesn't know what to do. It doesn't know what to do with this feeling, so it's going to make you ill. It's going to make you sick, because you're suppressing emotions. Anger is one of the worst ones, and what comes with that then is, like, for me, there was a high stress situation throughout my life, and I'm not surprised it developed into endometriosis. Like, it activated the DNA in which I have now got endometriosis, and it sits on my bowel. And, it's having an impact hormonally. I then ran off that nervous system for however long. Endo is an autoimmune condition. Stress is one of the worst things for it. None of this surprises me now that I look back on things, looking at where my nervous system has been at a lot of my life. So while over the years, and over like 10, 15 years, I have worked with different methods of like looking after my wellness, gymming, all of that, which is important, I didn't realize why I was so drawn to it until now. Like, my body craved learning how to lift weights. My body craved, I know I want to go into bodybuilding, but it was because I thought it was the epitome of health at the time. My body craved to eat a certain way. And it was because my body was trying to come back down and to actually understand that it was helping my nervous system rather than hindering. It's when I went into the depths of it became dangerous, because I didn't realize what I was actually doing to myself. Whereas now I have the awareness. Like, what I also know is, like, the nervous system being in this way, if we don't deal with it, is going to continue to have an impact on our lives. This is where cancer and diseases come into the mix, is because the nervous system can't regulate itself. And you don't know how to regulate it, and half the time we don't even realize there's something going on. So yeah, these are the impacts that having a dysregulated nervous system is going to have. And it's not just a one size fits all. It's not just a yoga session every day. It's not just lying down on the ground every day. It's not doing nothing. That's not going to stress you out every day. That's going to help. Because as I said in my last podcast, like, we can't avoid stressors in this world. We can limit them, but we can't avoid them. So what we need to learn to do is how we're going to regulate ourselves and what feels good to us, because it's not really a one size fits all, but there are certain markers that I believe can really help not only regulate us, but then also help us expand that nervous system so that we can actually hold more and not burn ourselves out. And this comes with time, right? I'm not going to give you, like, I can give you an 8-week course tomorrow on this, but what my course will caveat in is, like, yes, in 8 weeks you will feel different. I'm going to give you all the tools that you need to build your way of dealing with your nervous system, but it's not going to take 8 weeks to feel fully fucking amazing. It's going to take a bit longer because we're fucking human and life gets in the way, right? It takes time, it takes consistency, which is the biggest piece of this. The consistency is so important, but it also just takes time. It's just, you've developed a nervous system over, I'm 33 fucking years and more, because I was in the womb. So 34 years, I've developed a nervous system. Like, I can't just rewire everything in the morning. It's going to take time and showing up for myself. So, these are things of what's going to happen over the time of us learning about our nervous system and what's really going on. And you might already have a lot of these symptoms that I called out. And you've probably tried every supplement in the book. You've tried healthy eating and nothing's working. And if that is the case, it's because you need to come back to the nervous system. Because what's happening is your body doesn't feel safe. It constantly feels under threat. So if it's feeling under threat, it's going to do everything and anything it can to get out of that situation, to get out of where it's at. But if we're consistently putting it back into the same stressful situations and not looking after it and teaching it that it's safe, It's never going to change. And there are various ways in which you can actually do that. As I said, that doesn't require you lying on the floor. Like if we look at animals out in the wild, let's say a lion is chasing a deer and the deer gets away, right? That deer, the first thing it will do after it's been chased is it will shake off. Not saying, shaking off will absolutely help the nervous system, but like it will shake it off, right? So animals over time don't get to this point where they're constantly on alert. They shake it off from day one. It's kind of like that. They know life is still going to be stressful. They're still very aware of their surroundings all the time, but they don't allow it to stress them out unless they actually need to activate that flight response. So it's about understanding where you're currently at with your nervous system and what you actually need to look at. And then, as I said, nourishing it and nurturing it like a child. So like, what do we all want for our children? We want success. We want love. We want health. Absolutely big one there. And we need joy. We want them to be fucking happy, right? We want them to be absolutely happy. So like, if we're looking at our nervous system in that way, that means we're looking for physical health, emotional health, mindset work, hormonal health, and then energetic on top of that too. Like energetic of like being able to believe in ourselves, to call in what we're looking for, right? All of this works. And all of these things are a massive key part of regulating your nervous system to then also expand it. I'm not here in this world to get you to regulate your nervous system where you don't go outside the door because it seems stressful on a day. No, I'm going to teach you to regulate your nervous system from day one and then allow you to do hard things with fucking ease. Because having a dysregulated nervous system isn't just having an impact on you internally, it's actually also having an impact externally. It's going to impact how you move forward in your career, right? If you're not able to deal with discomfort without it completely taking you down, you're never going to want to ask for more money. You're never going to want to go for the job, right? Because you don't feel safe in yourself to either receive it or to even ask for it, right? On top of that, like, it's going to have impact on your relationships because you're not going to feel safe enough to tell somebody no. You're not going to feel safe enough to have a friend walk away. You're not going to feel safe enough to walk away from a friend or a bad relationship. It's going to have an impact on how you show up and how you react to things. Like, we don't want to be the overly nagging or aggressive person in friendships, or even the person who's walked all over. We want to be somebody who can show up authentically. So even for myself, like with years of people pleasing, it was actually just a nervous system reaction because it felt safer to me, but actually it wasn't. It was burning me out. Whereas now I've built the safety in myself that doing these next things of like setting boundaries and stuff has actually become, as much as I feel the surge, I know I'm really safe with myself now. I'm really safe in saying no. I'm really safe in actually speaking my mind to friends. I'm actually really safe in saying, do you know what? I'm done. Even if that left me with no one. It's a terrifying thought, but I know I've got me. I'm okay. And I built this not through sitting and doing hours upon hours of healing work and journaling. They have been beautiful tools that have helped. But I have built a safety in myself because if we look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, has anybody ever seen that? We all saw it in school. I think I saw it in business. And Maslow's hierarchy of needs is what every person needs, but specifically a child, right, needs to kind of find self-fulfillment, is the only way I can say it. So at the bottom, we have like psychological needs. Then we have safety, love and belonging, esteem, and then self-actualization, right? That's how we move up through Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Okay, so when we're first born, we just need the basics. We need the bottom one, our psychological needs originally. So we need food, water, all the things that we need for human survival, to survive as a baby. Then the next one we need is like security, stability, and we need somebody to protect us so that we can learn to protect ourselves. We then need love and belonging, which is the emotional relationships, intimacy, family connections, and so on and so forth. So this is the hierarchy of needs, right? Most of us may have got the physiological needs, right? Which is food, water, shelter, all of that. But a lot of us maybe didn't get the safety needs in various different ways. Like when I was first little, there was not a lot of security and stability in the home place because, you know, parents were moving out, money wasn't fully abundant. But then as time went on, that changed. But my parents' mindset on things didn't change. So therefore, I grew up thinking that we didn't have money. Whereas actually, I look back at it now and I'm like, well, I'm a lot safer than a lot of people in my life were. You know, I had a lot more than what they did. I always had food on the table. We always had a house over our head. But it's from the child's perspective. So we need to look at these things by going back to that Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And when we start looking at those and being like, okay, so we want our kids to be healthy. So we want them to have movement, to have a healthy body, to build a strong body and a strong mindset. We also need to feed them correctly, right? It's not about just handing the child anything they want to eat. We want to prevent them having diseases going on long term. So we want to feed them really good food. We want to ensure they have joy and emotional connection and emotional safety. We want security and stability. So like these are all really big things that all of us need in our nervous systems to feel safe. So this is what we need to start doing. And as I said, I'm going to do podcast episodes based on how I worked through them over my time. And how I really started off was I started with this Maslow's hierarchy of needs, unbeknownst to myself. Can we talk about that? As always. But then I also looked at what I value. So I also value health. I value joy. I value authenticity. And I value my relationships. So like I also value some other things too, like freedom and stuff. But they're all very different to me than they are to you. But there's stuff that I really value. So because I value them, I looked at my values and then this kind of all came in for me anyway and said, right, these things are what I value and what fill up my cup. I'm going to start implementing these as a strategy to build safety and connection with myself. Because if I value them, that means that they're important to me and they're important to my inner child. So how do you show a child that you value them? Well, you show up in the way that they need you to, not in the way that you want to, right? But it can be both. But you're going to show up in the way that's desired. So for me, it's like building a very strong body. I know that building a better muscular skeleton is better for me long term, for longevity, for my hormones, for my metabolism, for how I move in life, for having kids, all of these things. And that's going to impact my whole system. I also know it's going to help with my mindset. Also nourishing my body to build a healthier body. What does that mean? Well, nourishment is not only from food, but it's drinking water. It's having self-care days. It's maybe for me doing coffee enemas once a week. It is going to the sauna. It also looks like doing some somatic work if I need to. It's 5 minutes of breath work in the morning before I even leave the house. It's having a nice cup of green tea and journaling out how I'm feeling. Like, these are all the things that I had to really write out, and it seemed like a very overwhelming list when I first wrote it out. But then from there I said, right, how much of this can I actually get done that's realistic right now with a burnt out nervous system? And for me, at the time, it was simply I could do the morning of breath work and I could go to the gym. They were the first two things that I could do. And then after a few weeks, I built and I built. So I am going to go through that and ways in which we can do that in the next few episodes. But I just thought it was really, really important that I spoke on this, on how a dysregulated nervous system impacts us, and then how we can start looking at it and why we should start looking at it as more of a child that needs nourishment. It's like you're rebuilding it from the ground up again. And I think that's really, really important. And yeah, if anyone has any questions on nervous system, if there's anything I said that you're interested more in, that I could send over some research on, or like if you just have questions, I would really like for you to just come to me and have a chat. I love talking to people about this. I don't think this information should be gatekept at all. And the reason I want to speak about it all is because I'm really finding that it's not spoken about online. And people are saying things that don't really mean anything because there's no substance to them. And they're not explaining themselves. And for me, I like information. I like to understand why I have to do something. And it's not that I can't just trust, I totally can. But I've been through so much of the trust, and I'm being so discerning with what I'm doing with my life now, that the nervous system, while has spiritual and energetic properties, also has a real human aspect to it. It's not just a woo-woo thing, and it's not something that you can just do a 5-minute somatic work on and it just disappears. Like, there's a lot of stuff that needs to come up with it, that helps you build a more regulated life, but also helps you build an expansive nervous system, which I think is really important. So yeah, thank you for all listening in. As I said, feel free to leave a comment. I would love that, or a review. I would also love if you could share it with friends or anyone you know who would need to hear it. Even share it on your Instagram. Like, I am, at the moment, I'm not really running my business. I will eventually again, but right now I'm getting on the podcast because I just want to fucking share. I just want to share what's going on. I just want to share my insights and how incredibly important I find these things and how they've helped me, because I'm hoping somebody out there will find these helpful. So yeah, I can't wait for you all to tune in next week. I'm sending you all my love.